everybody. I'd like to call to order the November 9th, 2021 Board of Education regular meeting at 7 p.m. Sarah, good evening to you. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Gerardi? Mrs. Beck? Mrs. Lala? Here. Mr. Mazzano?
Here.
Mr. Monson?
Here.
Mr. Palazzo?
Here.
Mr. Giuliano?
Here. Okay, a quorum has been established. I just want to make note, both Molly and Renzo did reach out to me, and for personal reasons, they can't make it tonight. So I'll make note of that. So please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission of Norwich School District 80 is inspiring educational excellence and nurturing environment.
Thank you. As we've implemented and we do this time of the meetings, celebration of success. Does anybody have anything they want to celebrate?
I'll start.
Okay.
Thank you. We just were notified that through a grant from the Norwich Cares that the Norwich Schools Foundation put in for us here in District 80 back in the summer, that we were just awarded this grant for to-go bags, which are the classroom bags, classroom emergency bags for 80 of our classrooms in our spaces in our building. These bags consist of first aid kits, gloves, sanitizer, paper towels, rain ponchos, clipboards and tablets, scissors, and blankets and packaged goods for any kind of an emergency or a field trip that someone might go on that a classroom teacher can grab with them and always have with them. So we were just notified from Norwich Schools Foundation that the Norwich Cares Act went through and we'll be expecting them these in mid-December.
Great.
Really exciting.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. Anyone else?
I would just like to celebrate at Giles School. Our STEAM and science labs are progressing. They look very nice. If you have an opportunity to stop over at Giles, they've all been painted. Mr. Rossi and his team is doing a wonderful job. Soon the floors will be done and equipment will be brought in. So we're getting really close to the finish line. It's looking really great. So thank you for your dedication. Thank you for all your work.
Thanks, Bob. Anyone else?
I'll just add one thing. I know everyone was really looking forward to the Halloween parade coming back, and even though we were unable to have that outside due to the rain, we were able to switch to the indoor plan, and I think we're still able to have a great event where kids were able to have some fun, and the Giles Band was in here playing some music, and we were really able to switch to Plan B and keep the festivities going. So that was a success.
Great. Thanks, Sean. I'll take a quick minute. Does anybody have anything else? So I know the dance was Friday night at Giles. I just want to take a minute. I want to thank the PTA, and I want to thank Bob and Christina. And I'm sorry, forgive me if somebody else was there and I don't know, but I know you guys were there. So I want to thank the PTA especially, and I hope they watch the video and they can see that the board appreciates what they do. And I want to thank volunteers in general. Anybody, I know Frank was there volunteering. Chris, you were there, right?
On my way.
Okay, yeah, Chris's wife was there. Anybody who takes the time to volunteer to help out for the greater good, that's who I want to celebrate and that's who I want to thank. So there's a lot of people that say they like to do those things, but when push comes to shove, the volunteers, no matter if it's for the dance or any event the school has, that's who I want to celebrate. Bob and Christine, thank you. I understand it got a little packed in there. It was kind of full, but as always, you guys made a good night great. So thank you to the PTA, and whoever talks to the PTA, who's ever members of the PTA, please tell them the Board of Education appreciates everything they do. Most recently, the dance. It was great. So thank you to the volunteers out there. Always. Moving on to an action item. I'd ask the board to consider the approval of the agenda as it's presented or potentially modified. Any discussion from the board? Mr. Grimm?
Yes. Mr. Palazzo, I'd like to remove closed session from the agenda.
Okay.
There's no reason to go to closed session this evening. And I'd like to remove item 18A from the agenda this evening. We put that on as a placeholder, hoping we'd have a recommendation for you tonight for a special ed position. We're not ready to move forward with that at this time.
Okay. So to specify, 18A is consider the approval of employment of a district special ed teacher. Both that and a closed session will now be removed from the agenda, tonight's agenda. With that discussion, I'm going to ask the board to now, for a motion to approve the agenda as it's now modified.
Motion.
Second.
Frank, Maria. Roll call, please, sir.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. I'd like to welcome everybody, as I already did, but I'll do it again. Thank you for being here at tonight's meeting. Correspondence, there is no correspondence to report. Public participation, we can check that list. Check the sheet, thank you, Lou.
He says no, but
Nothing? Okay. All right, we don't have any public participation. Michelle or Ralph, did you get anything email-wise?
No.
Somebody that could not make it tonight?
No.
All right. Moving on to FOIA requests. There's 2 FOIA requests to report from the district's end since our last meeting, and I'm going to read them as always. Number 1, Chicago Regional Council of Carpenters, Bernadette Soto, dated October the 19th, 2021, requesting the executed contracts between Norwich School District 80, Anderson Lock, Elite Wood Flooring, Johansson Construction Company for fiscal year 2020. Please provide any correspondence such as emails, submittals, certified payroll, and payout requests. Also, please provide any documents disclosing and or identifying general contractors or subcontractors. Please provide a list of the schools the work was performed for the fiscal year requested. FOIA request 1. FOIA request 2, local labs, Vince Espy, dated October 21st, 2021, requesting 1 copy of the signed contract with Panorama. B, a list of all payments made to Panorama. 3 copies of all materials used by Panorama in training curriculum per the contract. And 4, a list of all teachers and classes, including students who have been exposed or instructed to Panorama materials. Again, these are the 2 FOIAs that we got since our last meeting. They will be posted on our website for the public's viewing. Administrative reports. Interim Superintendent, Mr. Ralph Grimm.
Mr. President, I think I'll reserve my remarks for the agenda items.
Okay. Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Guzik.
Thank you. I have 3 things to report on this evening. First, one thing I want to make the board aware of that we have started in District 80 is Wellness Wednesdays with our staff. We have been receiving some feedback from our staff that they are a bit stressed with the school year, a lot of changes happening, and just a lot of things that are going on with COVID last year. So we've been working with them on a plan to help support them, to help hear them, and to help show our appreciation. So last week, the HR department started Wellness Wednesdays, which is the first day last week we brought in donuts on Wellness Wednesdays. It's not just nutrition, but also good feelings. So they were sharing donuts with a friend in the morning. And we also shared with them a wellness bingo that if they complete 90% of the items on the wellness bingo, they enter into a raffle. This Friday is the cutoff. Items on the bingo were things like taking time for themselves, having a nice conversation with someone, things that they are achievable and just help with overall have salad, we have vegetables, we have just a plethora of things to go with the salad so that they can enjoy a healthy lunch tomorrow. Next week, it's kind of surprised, I can't let you know what the next one is, but we have a lot of things planned for November and December already, which will continue into the next year. We've already received a lot of really positive feedback from the staff on our wellness Wednesdays. My second item is I attended a Leiden Area Superintendent's Organization meeting last week, Friday. This group is called LASSO. And in the group, they spoke about the Leiden Norwood Athletic Conference. And they did vote on bringing some changes to that conference for starting with the basketball season. Why they needed to look at some changes is that the attendance at some of the volleyball games was getting a little too high. Too many people in attendance, and a lot of the superintendents were just not comfortable with the numbers of people that were filling the gym. Some of the larger gyms, like Hester was very large gyms, that wasn't an issue. Some of the smaller gyms, that became an issue. So they put out a memo, which Mr. Biecki will start sharing with the Giles parents and families very soon, regarding some new mandates that they put forward for the basketball season. Some of those are, of course, the masks be worn and properly worn over your mouth and your nose, which has been there the whole time, and the 6 feet distancing on the bleachers. So they want families to stay together, but then 6 feet between families. The biggest changes that they brought on us with has to do with the families. They have voted not to allow visiting families to come into a game. So for example, if Giles is playing Union Ridge, only Giles families can attend, and they're limiting that to 2 tickets only. And visiting families cannot attend away games for their school. So this would be 2 tickets for each family of basketball players and 2 tickets for the families of the cheerleaders that are coming in. They also want to limit students coming in that are not playing basketball or participating in the cheerleading. This will be a big change because very often our families do travel to see their children play. But this is what that association has voted on, and it is what we need to follow moving forward from the Leiden Norwood Athletic Conference. So Mr. Bianchi will put in the memo that came out from the conference in the tracks this week, and he'll start blasting that out and work with cheerleading and basketball parents. We didn't have that. We're still right at the end of volleyball, which they didn't start the restrictions for volleyball. They are, however, moving the tournament games around a little bit so that they're at the bigger schools so they can have more people in the stands for volleyball. They'll do that with basketball as well, so that you are able to go to a tournament game. The last thing I wanted to follow up on was the discussion we had last month about the after-school opportunities. We put out some information to our teachers about what they're passionate about and what they would like to offer for enrichment programs. Also looking at offering some after-school tutoring for students who qualify for tutoring. We got a good response from our faculty. We're really happy with this, the progress that we're making. And this program that we're looking at is a pilot program. So starting it off, seeing how it's working, how it goes, and then hopefully expanding it into something much larger. I did have a follow-up meeting with the Park District because, as you recall, that is part of their contract that they would be offering some after-school activities. And I met with Anne-Marie a month ago and then wanted to revisit with her in November. So we met together last week. They are still really interested in wanting to run something early next year. They are hiring a new recreation director that would be the person to oversee this programming. She asked me to give her another week. We have another meeting next week. And then we can finalize what the program's going to look like in January and see where we can go from there. I want to just thank our teachers for their suggestions. We got some really great suggestions, and I don't think that is over. We're still looking at other opportunities and really building this to be a really great program using ESSER $3. So that's my report for today. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Michelle. So on the changing of the guidelines in the conference, were the individual schools who are in that conference, were they consulted? Were we asked our opinion?
Yes, everyone was at the meeting. All the schools.
What did
school was
what did that result look like? Was it every school was for that change?
Yes.
So if you have a single parent at home who has two other kids in the district and they want to watch their son or daughter play, they can't come in now. What are they to do?
Correct. Well,
That's a tough one for me.
I think if it's a student, then we can let in the students. They just want us to be really mindful of the spacing and the 6 feet and make sure everyone's wearing the mask. So they've given us some leeway with the students, with family member students. There's some leeway with that.
So maybe Bob can jump in here. When we send out that notification to our parents, is it going to be clearly put in there that if you have multiple children in the district, they're going to be allowed to come in?
So, yeah,
How are we going to work that?
So there was additional email that was released tonight that I just saw that I wasn't be able to read because some of the schools are now asking additional questions. And so I haven't fully been able to read and comprehend that email. So I can't answer that question in what I know right now because it could be different from that email.
Yeah.
But what I am doing is I am working with our Director of Technology, Mr. Joe, to figure out a solution for live streaming the games. So that families that are unable to attend or grandparents that would like to watch their grandchildren participate, they would be able to do that through logging in. So we're in the very beginning stages of looking at how we can do that.
If I could ask, whose idea was this? Where did this come from?
It came from the superintendents.
All of them?
I would say.
Because here's
several of them.
what's going to happen, Michelle,
Yeah,
right? And
several.
history has told me and everybody else up here, these questions are going to get asked to us, and they're going to say, "How come we can't go watch our son or daughter play volleyball? Now my son's doing basketball. I can't go. Where did that come from?" And for me to answer that question, I need to know what those answers are. Where did this come from?
That's the athletic conference, which is the conference that we belong
Yes,
to.
yes.
Is who made that decision. The superintendents are the part of that conference.
Do Board of Educations have any say in that, or were they consulted as to how individual school boards feel about
I
that?
cannot speak about other people, I can only speak about us.
So,
We did not speak with the Board of Education
Okay.
regarding this.
okay.
Well, thank you for making that clear.
Okay.
Do the cheerleaders usually go with the basketball teams to the away games? In the past?
For Norwich School District 80, no. The
Okay.
cheerleaders only did the home game.
Okay, yeah, I just want to know that. All right. Everything else is
There
okay.
are some schools that the cheerleaders did attend, but they will not be attending.
I get that, but I'm saying in the past, did the girls cheerleading teams go to the other
Not
schools?
Not in
Okay,
Norwich.
that's all I got.
They only did the home game.
So, for Giles, right? Didn't they just have a cheerleader meeting for the girls?
Yes, that was on Monday the 8th.
And for everybody wanted to get,
They had
right?
tryouts, yes.
Right,
For a
so
meeting.
with this new rule, who's ever on the cheerleading team at Giles is not going to be able to go to road games? Is that right?
They've never attended.
Oh, they never
That's
have?
right,
They never
Okay,
have.
okay.
I was fired up.
So what will happen now is each cheerleading individual will get 2 tickets to get to their parents. And those, you can do whatever they want with that. They can, both mom and dad can go, or they can give them to their grandparents, however they want to do that. And
Yeah.
same thing with the basketball players, they'll also get 2 tickets. And then we need to, in the bleachers, make sure that families are socially distancing according to the guidelines that have been set forth by the LNAC.
I have one last one. Has there been a big breakout in other schools of COVID during
schools, yes.
during the sporting events? Or
I can't speak to the sporting events, but there has been some large breakout in some schools.
okay.
In regards to the cheerleaders not going to road games, is that just a District 80 thing, or is that a conference thing?
It's a,
It's a district agency.
Why is that?
think this dates back from a long time ago.
Long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago, where cheerleaders didn't travel.
It's probably 18 years, we're talking, going back,
I get it.
way back. There was,
So are we the only school in the conference that whose
No.
cheerleaders don't travel?
there's other schools that they do not travel as well.
He's going
I
on.
have a question also. To your knowledge, and I know you said you couldn't speak for any other superintendents, but to your knowledge, were any of the other school boards with those superintendents consulted, or is it just all the superintendents decided to come up with this?
So anecdotally, I can speak anecdotally, I can tell you that the superintendents were very strong on not allowing other visiting people to come in. And in their words, when they explained that, some of them did say, my Board of Education does not allow people in.
So whoever was involved in
So
the
that's
meetings,
all.
who spoke on our behalf?
I attended the
Yeah.
meeting. So
Can I ask you what you told the other superintendents on our behalf?
Absolutely. I actually didn't really say much about it.
Okay.
They were very strong about it, very strong about not attending.
What was,
Point that the
well,
other-
I'm asking you, what was your take? What was your opinion on it?
So I have attended some volleyball games and had a conversation with Mr. Bianchi about it. They are very crowded.
Mhm.
And volleyball is not typically as crowded as basketball. So I could see basketball and the crowd being an issue. And back to what Mr. Bianchi mentioned, all of the school districts are talking about live streaming. So in fact, we have a student who is playing at Unionbridge. Unionbridge would have a live streaming link as well.
The question are we going to be, when registration for basketball opens up, are we going to be notifying in these letters that
So
parents
today
can't
was
go
a-
to away games? Because I think that's going to distract parents probably from having their kids join.
So today, Mr. Gaffastoni, the basketball coach, had a meeting for tryouts with the kids, and I did not get a chance to brief him what he said today to them. I will with him tomorrow. He's fully aware because I know he's working on the tickets, developing the tickets so that we have them for when our first game is, which is in December. So I'll have more information on that, hopefully tomorrow.
So in addition to that, Bob, if you could, some information needs to go out in addition to the email. If you send something out, I've had about 10 minutes outside of work and coming here today, so I don't know. I haven't seen any emails yet. It needs to be really spelled out, really clear, like Maria said, because what's going to happen is most likely, right, if they can't go to road games, there's going to be a lot of, please just spell that out. I mean, and I'm not saying I can only speak for myself up here. I'm not saying I agree with the decision that was made, because this Board of Education, we had no say in the matter, and we weren't consulted on that. But it seems like it is what it is, and we're at a certain point now. And I don't mean this to come out the wrong way, but if any questions come to me, I'm going to defer them to the people that have knowledge of what decision was made and what was done.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know,
That's
so,
fine.
right? Anybody else have anything else?
I'm extremely disappointed in
Yep.
hearing this, and I'm a little shocked that I'm hearing it sitting here now.
No, I'm not.
That's it. That's all I got to say. It seems like we're going backwards. So
The goal of this board was return to the word normal. Whatever normal is for people might have a different definition for everybody. But in following the guidelines of the CDC and the state and local, but this to me, I'm gonna be honest, it takes us a step backwards. And I don't want to jeopardize the safety of our children and the staff and the people that enter the building. That's first and foremost, but it's definitely not a step towards that word normal, in my opinion. I could be the minority in that. But moving on.
Well, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
So there's a couple things. This often happens when you participate in a conference. We don't operate alone. And we could have expressed a differing opinion, but I don't think that would change the outcome. And so that's, again, part of it. I know this is a disappointment. I understand this seems like we're stepping back, but I'm going to say we're still in the middle of a pandemic. Thank you, Mr. President, for acknowledging that we're still under the guidelines of the CDC and IDPH.
But this change, Mr. Grimm, this change is not a recommendation. Is it a recommendation from the CDC or the state or the federal?
It's in keeping with, I believe, the guidelines that are in place in terms of participation numbers and things like that. I could be wrong, but I don't think the board.
Is that what they said in this meeting? Is it in?
It's in keeping with the social distancing piece of it. Because what they've seen in volleyball is they haven't been able to socially distance in the gym.
Okay.
Their concern is basketball typically brings out additional people, and they're going to be able to control that. And if I can add to what you just mentioned, Mr. Grimm, when you are in a group like this,
Yeah.
You leave the meeting in agreement of what decision was made, even if you don't agree with that decision, because you're grouped together. You leave the table with whichever way the vote ended up happening. The vote in this case was overwhelmingly for this new guidance. So I can agree or not agree, and still have to support the new guidance that is put in place.
I understand. And the same could be said for the board. We could agree or not agree. That's just the way it is.
Yeah,
and I want the community to hear that too.
Yeah, I agree. And it wasn't something I was privy to before the meeting.
I'm sorry, Michelle.
I wasn't privy to that we were even discussing this before the meeting on Friday. It wasn't time for me to say, let me go back and talk to you.
The decisions that I make and we make, I stand behind, and I will say that. Yep, sure, check the vote. That's what we voted for. This is not. We didn't partake in it. That's all I want us to understand and know that that's the way it went. So I appreciate your explanation on it, and we can move on, I guess.
Yeah, I would just one more thing, and I don't want to belabor this. I appreciate the board's position. I will also tell you that I look at this as just another decision in the pandemic that you've given us to make the responsibility for.
I get it.
We'll do better the next time in communicating before we come to a meeting.
Yeah, and please don't take me the wrong way, Michelle. I wasn't in that meeting, but questions will come to me, and they will come to my fellow board members, and just to better prepare us, better give us the tools to answer those. That's why I'm asking the way I'm asking. But I understand what everybody's saying.
Yep.
So I appreciate your report. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your guidance.
We'll move on to the building principals. We'll start with Dr. Reviola. Lisa.
All right, thank you. So our monthly spirit weeks have been going really great. We've seen a lot of participation in that, and students coming in, excited for those theme days. Right now, we're in the middle of our food drive, which goes through the end of the week, and you may have seen some of that in the hallway when you came in, and that is going really well. Thanks to everyone who has donated food, and like I said, that's ongoing to Friday this week. After Thanksgiving, we'll be starting our coin drive, and also just another annual tradition that's coming back, and trying to give back to the community. Last week we held a virtual Super Kids training for our kindergarten through second grade teachers. Super Kids is our English language arts curriculum for kindergarten through second grade, and that was focused on differentiation and differentiated practices, and heard a lot of good feedback from the teachers who attended that session. That was after school. And we also had our first round of staff going through CPI training, which is nonviolent crisis intervention, and that was started last week. We're actually having another round of that tomorrow evening, and really excited to bring that to our staff. Also, we have begun providing English language, or ELL services this school year. We have a large number of students who qualify for those services, around 150 students in need. And so that was a massive schedule to put together, but we're excited that that is in place. We also have wing groups, what I need time, our intervention block every day, where about 60 students are receiving some additional support of the school day. And we also have our after-school booster program that's running for additional tier 3 supports for specific students who qualify for that tutoring support. So after Thanksgiving break, we plan to begin our Fast Bridge testing, which is a one-on-one assessment for early reading and math skills in kindergarten and first grade, and oral reading fluency in 2nd through 4th grades. And in addition to that, we also did push the math assessment window and adjusted that to take place in mid-January. It was originally slated to be right after Thanksgiving. The overall consensus on conversations that we were having is that that was really soon compared to the beginning of the year assessment window. We've also had some training for our special education paraprofessionals, which has been received really well. Our related services team, that would be our speech pathologists, our school social workers, school psychologists, and OT and PT, have been working with our paraprofessionals on providing some training and working with our students with exceptionalities, which has really been huge this year, and making sure that they feel supported and prepared for the positions that they're in. Also, just want to take a moment to thank everyone who may have donated candy, which was originally intended for the trunk or treat, but was packaged up and repurposed and distributed to students at both Lee and Giles on the 29th of October. And also I thank you for the cookies and chips from the PTA during the parent-teacher conferences. That was a nice treat on those things. That concludes my report. Thanks.
Board. Dr. Riviola, thank you. Mr. Biecki, Giles.
So thank you. Our Halloween assembly was very successful. Students played a couple games of bingo, and then we did some friendly grade level competition with some minute-to-win-it activities. We had a grade war, some grade wars with our grades. A great time was had by all. Our 8th graders did win the grade war and the minute-to-win-it activities, so congratulations to them. So we're hoping for our 7th, our 6th, and our 5th. Our next grade wars event that we're doing, which is actually taking place right now with our canned food drive that we're doing with the Salvation Army. So every time a student brings in a canned good, they get a PBIS point, and then the total number of canned goods, whoever has the most at grade level will win 2 homework passes and 15 PBIS points. And I can tell you, the students at Giles, they love those homework passes. So they are bringing in cans like it's unbelievable, which is only great for our community because it'll help feed individuals in our area so that everyone has a happy Thanksgiving. In regards to the Halloween candy, we at Giles we were unable to pass out the candy because we were short. So we are, we wanted to make sure everyone has something, so we're working with PTA to get that corrected. So candy will be sent out. We're waiting for additional candy to come in. Trimester 1 ends on Friday, November 19th, and progress reports will be emailed home on Friday, December 3rd. A lot of the assessments, as Dr. Riviola has said, are the same over here at Giles. The one thing that we're going to do in the beginning, I believe it's December 10th, if that's correct, we're going to have our 8th graders take the MAP test first. That test is important for the data that we get from the MAP test goes to the high school for placement for freshman year. So we'll be communicating that out with our 8th grade students and our 8th grade parents so that they are aware of that. But that test for 8th graders is important for their high school. We get the honor and privilege tomorrow. State Senator Markwick will be visiting Giles School. He'll be with us from 1 to 3. We're going to be having a tour of the facility. He's going to be visiting a 7th grade social studies class where he's going to speak on how a bill becomes law, which is really great because our 7th graders are learning soon after Thanksgiving, we'll be learning the state constitution. So this will be a good jump start for them as they go into that program of the curriculum. We'll also be doing a student roundtable with students from 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, select students. We're also going to have State Senator Markwick meet with our mental health professionals regarding, issues that are going on with students in our area that we want to be able to properly address and support. So we're going to have that discussion with them, and then we're going to end with Senator Markwick with administration, just going over things, what he can do to help us here in Norwich School District 80. So we're looking forward to that, and other than that, that concludes my report.
Board? Okay, Mr. Bianchi, thank you. Special education report, Mr. Dorr.
There are so many things going on, and one of the things that's hard is kind of limiting to kind of those things where there's so many team members that I want to individually recognize. One of the things that's been happening, I just really appreciate the support from both buildings, especially in supporting the training of our new paraprofessionals that we've hired. We're definitely looking to make sure that we have the staff to meet the dynamic needs of the students that we have, and then when they're hired, they have to be onboarded and provide the skills and tools that they need in order to be successful. And that's great work that our related services team is doing, and it's definitely being supported by both building principals and the administrative team, and I just really want to thank them. Ms. Kuzik and I have been meeting with Ridgewood High School about once a month to kind of, connect our, because generally, our students are from Giles, they're going to become Ridgewood High School students. We want to set them up for success. We want to know their program, and we want them to know our students, and we're getting to that. And one of the things that we focused on last week was an articulate meeting of our meetings between Ridgewood High School. The students have a transition meeting between Ridgewood High School and Giles. There's a lot of just IEP paperwork, a lot of that stuff that is really starting and going in earnest. One of the things that happened is we had a year where a lot of meetings were virtual, and we're having more and more of those meetings in person, and kind of making sure we had that. We facilitated an IEP process that is a big part of what this board and this district has supported for years. And it's neat to see that process. And a big part of that process is the active inclusion of parents as valuable team members. And it's been great to see some of those meetings. There's two things I want to make before Kevin. One, you supported this summer a co-teaching initiative where we partnered with West 40 to provide kind of coaching, discussion. Those coaching cycles are concluding. We have one more coaching session at Levy tomorrow, where the co-teaching team, where a special education professional and a general education specialist work together in concert to meet the dynamic needs of the students that they're serving. And so those coaching sessions, it's a difficult service delivery model and we'll support it. So we just appreciate the fact that you're investing in our staff. And that's provided great feedback for both Mr. Biecki and myself, and Dr. Raviola and myself, Ms. Mizell and Ms. Aarons, as far as how we can better support our teachers in real and tangible ways. And the other thing is next week, we are starting instituting special education data days where we are going to be, the principals and myself and the school psychologists are going to be meeting with every special education teacher to go over just the educational performance, because all means all in district 80. We want to support that work, and that's just a big part of what we're doing. There's so many other things, and I don't want to talk with anybody about any of these things, but those are kind of the highlights that I'd love to share right now.
Board? Frank, you got something? Oh, okay. Mr. Dorr, thanks. Monthly staffing report. Mrs. Gusten.
Just providing you with the staffing report for November. As you can see, we still have a few vacancies that we are searching for to fill.
Okay.
Any questions about the staffing report?
Okay, thank you. Discipline reports. Mrs. Mizell.
Hi, good evening. I have no formal discipline data to report from Lee School, but I did want to share that the referral system that we put in place really seems to be working. This was something that our teachers said was a need. and looking to get some of those groups started soon. Our students are shopping at Walmart next week, and they are very excited about that. We purchased some new items, so they will again take their paws and trade them in for some of the very fun trinkets that you can see in the display case outside of the gym, and they're very much looking forward to that. And then lastly, as Dr. Revilla shared, our Spirit Weeks really are so fun to see our students participate in. We have another one coming up next week, and so I have a handout to share with you about that, which those Disney fans, I mean, Dr. Revilla said, you have me at Disney Day. So those are some of the things that are going on at week. And that's the conclusion of my report.
Board have any questions or comments? Okay, we'll go over to Giles School. This is Aaron.
Good evening. Since the last board meeting, we have had 7 total suspensions. 6 have been in-school suspensions, and 1 has been an out-of-school suspension with an in-school suspension component. 3 of the ISSs were in violation of Board Policy 7:193, which states using, possessing, distributing, purchasing, selling, or offering for sale any illegal drug or controlled substance. Interface offer, but that's the gist
Thank
of
you.
it. 1 in violation of Board Policy 7:199, engaging in any hazing or kind of bullying or aggressive behavior that does physical or psychological harm to a staff person or another student, or urging other students to engage in such conduct. 2 are in violation of Board Policy 7:190-21, engaging in any activity on or off campus that interferes with, disrupts, or adversely affects the school environment, operations, or educational function. And then 1 out-of-school suspension with an in-school suspension component in violation of Board Policy 7:197, 9, and 21. 7 stating disobeying rules of student conduct or directives from staff members or school officials. 9, engaging in hazing or any kind of bullying or aggressive behavior that does physical or psychological harm to a staff person or another student. And 21, engaging in any activity on or off campus that interferes with, disrupts, or adversely affects the school environment, operations, or educational function. But aside from that, we've been seeing a lot of positive behavior with our students, and we're really making an effort as a staff to recognize upstanders and that students who are constantly doing the right thing and showing up and being Giles made, and we've had a lot of positive conversations with our students. And we support that through our Spirit Week, which Mr. Bianchi is going to share with you. And also, our monthly Spirit Weeks have been going really well. It's exciting to see the staff and students engage in healthy competition with one another in terms of spirit wear and who's Giles made and proud to do so. Additionally, we're increasing our response to bullying or bullying behaviors and really social and emotional needs of our students all around. So we're working with our mental health professionals to provide supports to our teachers during advisory, to provide that safe space and for students to recognize if they're having a problem and who they can go to for help, or who they feel most comfortable going to for help. And additionally, tomorrow I am meeting with an officer within the Norwich Police Department to help us address digital citizenship and our digital footprint, because after a year of relying so heavily on technology for so many good things, we also want to make sure that we're continuing to use it for good and not forget our footprint that we leave on social media. And that concludes our report for press.
Board, anything? Thank you very much. Moving on to our board committees, board policy and development. You can see on the agenda, action item 14A is the approval and adoption of a list of policies that Mr. Grimm has been working on. So we thank you for that. You want to touch on any of those, or just?
No, we'll talk about it when we get to the action item, but I will tell you that we were notified today that the next packet of proposed policy revisions will come out on December 7th. So we'll have another long list of proposed policy revisions for you in December. This is the gift that keeps on giving.
And we thank you.
Thank you.
Building and grounds.
Everything.
Just a couple things. December 7th, there will be a meeting between the Building Grounds Committee and administration and Pat Rossi to discuss the comprehensive plumbing plans, how it's going to be approached, because it's school-wide, both schools, very comprehensive, but it'll have to be done piece by piece, and that takes a lot of planning. With it is asbestos removal, because as you demo old plumbing or even get to the old plumbing, you're going to encounter asbestos. And later in our agenda, you see a quote concerning that. But December 7th, that will be discussed. A attendee or at the dance last Friday had mentioned, an adult who's running the DJ company, had mentioned that they noticed a lot of things on the Giles stage and concerned that it was a hazard and whatnot, but come to find out that those are things that are just temporarily placed there from the 2 rooms that will become labs. A lot of things are just stored there for now, will be addressed. No concern there. And looking forward to the STEAM labs, but they seem to be right on their way. And that's it.
All right, thank you, Frank. Communications?
No update.
Okay. Finance?
No update.
What I will say about negotiations, and Michelle, you can help me with the date, March 16th? 16th? So on March 16th, that's agreed upon date, we're going to have some training, myself, Frank, Renzo, in regards to interest-based bargaining. Training is going to come into the district. We're going to have an 8-hour training course that day in person. So
4 p.m. to 10 p.m.
6 hours.
6 hours.
6 hours.
All right, 6-hour training. So that's on March 16th. That will be in preparation to get us and the union together with both of our interests and for our approach in the upcoming negotiations. So other than that, nothing to report. March 16th is probably our next date on the calendar. The next 3 items, education, parent, teacher advisory, and behavioral. Those are all ad hoc as needed. So without being redundant, there's nothing to report on any of those 3. Norwich Park, Chris, anything?
Michelle gave us a good rundown of what communication we've had with Norwich Park, so we got nothing. I have nothing.
Okay. Moving on to our consent agenda. I'd ask the board to consider the approval of the consent agenda. Any discussion on the board's end or anyone? Therefore, I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Frank, Maria? Sarah, roll call, please.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala?
Yes.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Moving on to action items. I'd ask the board to consider the approval and adoption of the policies, administrative procedures, and exhibits on second reading. Discussion. I'll ask for a motion to approve and adopt the policies, administrative procedures, and exhibits on second reading.
Second.
Louis, Chris, roll call, please.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes. Motion carries. Ask the board to consider the approval of the changes to the fiscal year 22 contract with citywide building maintenance. Discussion?
All right, so last month we told you that there was, we had received a letter from Citywide requesting a sizable increase. You directed us to engage Citywide in conversations to soften the blow of that proposed increase. And so tonight I want to report to you that we We did have a very fruitful conversation with the president of Citywide, Mr. Mark Batista. We proposed that we would pay half of the requested increase for the remainder of this fiscal year. We would pay the other half on July 1, which is the beginning of our new fiscal year. So the benefit to us is it eased our deficit spending just a little bit. And then we asked for an additional year on the contract with Citywide for increases that were CPI with a cap of 5% for the next 2 years. My thinking was the extra year then means this is not something that Mrs. Guzik will have to deal with in her first year as the superintendent. Mr. Batista agreed to that and sent us a letter. I wasn't totally comfortable with the way he worded our agreement in the letter and submitted it to our attorney, who turned around an addendum to the contract. We submitted the addendum to Mr. Batista, and he agreed to it and signed it. So we're very appreciative of that, very thankful for that. And so tonight, what we're asking you to approve is the addendum, which basically puts down in writing what I've just explained to you. Michelle did a nice job. She kind of handled this with Mr. Batista, and we both, I think, worked with our attorney, Kevin Gordon at CREA. So, Michelle, is there anything you want to add to that?
Mr. Batista just asked us to thank you for working with them and that they appreciate our relationship.
So we would recommend approval of the addendum. And I believe we sent that out, did we not, Sarah? Did we send out the addendum?
It's attached.
It's attached here.
The addendum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you both for that. I'll ask for a motion to approve the changes to the fiscal year 22 contract with Citywide Building Maintenance.
Motion.
Maria, Chris, roll call please.
Mrs. Lala?
Yes.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Motion carries. I'd ask the board to consider the approval of the dates for the strategic planning initiative. Discussion on that, just in your board books, the dates are noted as February 4th and or February 5th next year. Just to add. Any other discussion? I'll ask for a motion to approve the dates for the strategic planning initiative.
Motion.
Chris, Frank, roll call please.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yep.
Mrs. Lala?
Motion carries. I'd ask the board to consider the approval of the quote for asbestos abatement inspection work to be completed by Kamplin Environmental Services Incorporated in the amount of $12,500. No change. Discussion?
So this is an agreement to have Kamplin come in and really give us a finite number of connections, elbows, etc., that have asbestos that'll need to be removed as part of our plumbing renovation work. And I see Mr. Rossi shaking his head, so I'm seeing he's in agreement with us. This is necessary for us to properly plan how to send out our bid specs for the rest of the project. Correct, Pat? Correct. Okay. So we would like for, we recommend, would like for you to approve this quote as presented this evening.
Does this company also do the removal if you were to?
They don't, they're our consultant, so they would help us write the specification. They would be the management company, then we would have to bid out that one.
I see.
And this includes testing of different materials that are asbestos, suspected asbestos contained.
Okay. I'll ask the board for a motion to approve the quote for asbestos abatement inspection work to be completed by Kamplin Environmental Services Incorporated in the amount of $12,500.
Motion.
Frank, Chris, roll call please.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala?
Yes.
Motion carries. Ask the board to consider the approval of the application and agreement for the use of district facilities for Rebels basketball. Discussion?
So as the board requested, we gathered the information in the memo that I wrote to the board about this item and the next item does indicate how many students are Norwich District 80 students. And I had a discussion with Mr. Mraz regarding the dates. He is only looking for 3 dates, and those 3 dates are for practice for, I believe it was more than 80% of Norwich District 80 students. He is not looking for the February dates any longer for the tournaments. 3 dates.
I think it was 88%.
88.
That's correct. So Michelle, thanks for cleaning that up. Appreciate it. Those dates are November 17, 18, and December 15th. And like Frank just said, it is 88%.
Wait,
Thank
this
you,
is
Michelle.
3 dates in total?
Correct.
3.
That's all he's looking for.
And I would just note for the record, we're recommending no rental fee, that we waive the fee.
Considering the totality of the request, the recommended fee, the fee has been recommended to be waived.
There is no cost to Norwich District 80 for this event. For them to use them.
Okay, thank you very much, Michelle. I'll ask for a motion to approve the application and agreement for use of district facilities for Rebels basketball. Chris, Frank, roll call please.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes. Motion carries. Consider the approval of the application and agreement for use of district facilities for NYA Junior Rebels cheer. Discussion?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you go.
Along the same lines, here they have 85% Norwich District 80 students. They are basically looking for some Mondays and some Fridays. They realize that we may have basketball games going at that time. They're super flexible. We'll go into the small gym so they can have use of both the small and the large gym at Giles. Again, this is not a cost accrued to the districts. We are recommending that this be approved and at no cost.
And just to specify those dates, 3 in November being 12, 15, 19, December 5, looks like 3, 6, 10, 13, and 17. I'll ask for a motion to approve the application and agreement for use of district facilities for NYA Junior Rebels cheer.
Motion.
Second.
Louis, Maria? Roll call please, Sarah.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Motion carries. I ask the board to consider the approval of the contract with West 40 for BCBA, known as Board Certified Behavioral Analyst Services. Discussion? I'll ask for a motion to approve the contract with West 40 for BCBA, again known as Board Certified Behavior Analyst Services.
Motion.
Second.
Chris, Maria? Roll call please, sir.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes. Motion carries. Consider the approval of the Elite Wood Floor renewal estimate for the repair and refinishing of the steam lab floors in the amount of $19,800. Discussion.
Just confirm, this covers all the floors of both rooms?
This is all floors in both rooms, both wood and concrete floor. At prevailing wage.
Thank you, Mr. Rossi. I'll ask for a motion to approve the Elite Wood Floor renewal estimate for the repair and refinishing of the steam lab floors in the amount of $19,800.
Motion. Second.
Chris, Frank, roll call please, Sarah.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Motion carries. I ask the board to consider the approval of the TRS Supplemental Savings Plan with Voya Financial. Discussion. Ask for a motion to approve the TRS Supplemental Savings Plan with Voya Financial.
Motion.
Second.
Frank, Chris? Roll call, please.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Monson?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes. Motion carries. I'd ask the board to consider the approval of non-public facility placement contract with Winston Knowles School for one student. Dates being November 15, 2021 through July 28th of 2022. Discussion. I'll ask for a motion to approve the non-public facility placement contract with Winston Knowles School for one student. Dates being November 15th, 2021 through July 28th of 2022.
Second.
Frank, Lou, Sarah, roll call.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala? Yes. Mr. Monson?
Yes.
That motion carries. Moving on to our discussion items, I'll turn it over to Mr. Grimm.
Don't you think this would be a good time for about 20-minute break?
I really like the flow of the meeting, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Take it.
But thank you for asking me.
No problem. Thank you. Just a few discussion items this evening. The first, we just wanted to mention we received a letter from the Village of Norwich inviting us to have a representative in the Santa Send-Off Parade. I'm sorry, Michelle, do you have that date? I don't have that.
The 18th of December. So that this is the second annual parade of Norridge send-off. They slightly cut down the route this year so that they're only crossing over Harlem once instead of twice. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember this last year, so I don't know if any of you saw it or attended it, but it's their second annual. They said it was very popular. So they are seeking if you would like to participate in the parade.
Might have been put on hold last year, but yes, I remember it being in the past. Might have been put on hold last year.
No, it happened.
I
It
believe they did
happened last year.
Yeah,
Yeah, it happened
So
I
this
think it
is-
was a COVID response parade.
Okay, good,
And now they felt it was so successful, they wanted to have it again this year,
good.
on December
We
18th.
can have one vehicle, I believe is
One vehicle.
what they said. We could have one vehicle if we wanted to, so we wanted to bring it to your attention and thank the village for inviting us to participate.
So are we going to have a vehicle in that, or how does that, how do you run doing it in the past?
So we're asking you.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
Sure. I think if we can make it work, and yeah, definitely.
So I will respond that the Norwich District 80 will have a vehicle and a parade.
I would like to see that response when we'll put together the details of that vehicle and who it's going to be. Yeah, sure. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item B, we've talked about, and I think you've already given approval to the date for the interest-based bargaining training, March 16th, from 4 to 10. Mrs. Guzik and I did sign a joint letter with our association requesting a trainer from the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service to provide that training and then to be present during our actual bargaining sessions to facilitate those. That's a model that I've used in the past. I think that works out really, really well. So we'll confirm the date of the 16th from 4 to 10 with our association leadership and proceed along those lines. The next item is the Village of Norwich Lee Elementary traffic study. Just wanted to remind the board and those who are listening this evening or who may view our recording of the meeting that we will have a representative from the village at the meeting in December on the 14th who will be giving a brief summary of that traffic study. Mrs. Guzik and I had a conference call with Mike last week and talked about what that might look like. So we want to encourage the folks who live here in the neighborhood and who are impacted by the traffic flow on a daily basis to come and participate or be present at that meeting and hear the report.
Michelle, just going back to what I remember you telling me, the residents that are close to Lee, they're going to be notified by someone?
Yes.
Can you speak on that?
Yes.
We are working with the village, with Brian Gazer, to identify the area, and they'll be sent to our work.
Right, and then as far as our parents and the people, our community that get the emails and that's going to be going out. It's going to be
They'll go out through our SWIFT system.
as long as it's well publicized, then we encourage participation, especially then. Thank you.
We will do that.
Slightly related, but I don't see where it is now. How did the donation of traffic cones and
That'll go out.
yeah.
I think you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I had an email first from a parent who was outside of Lee one day and saw one of these stands and said, hey, I can run a company with this. If you ever need any more, let me know. I sent that email to Dr. Aviola and to Mr. Bianchi.
Yeah. So, one of our parents works for the Plastic Cave, the company that manufactures those products, and had sent an email, and as we were having some conversations and, sending some emails about drop-off points and whatnot, I thought, yes, we could use a few more signs, that way we can, put those out there to identify those areas, and a few more cones and, the whole thing connected. So, I had just reached out, and he said, he would talk to a manager, and then that was pretty much how that came about. So,
Well, this does come to fruition. I think maybe the board admin creates a letter. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Something like that.
Would you like us to send that letter on your behalf?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Yes, we'll be glad to do that. Okay. The next item is 15D, proposed update to policy 5:330, sick days, vacations, holidays, and leave for educational support staff. So while we were talking about a couple of other issues relative to bargaining, it came up in our conversation that the maximum number of sick days that an IMRF employee, an employee who pays into IMRF, not TRS, can now accumulate 240 days of service credit, which could then be converted into their retirement annuity. And so we have included in my memo to you a copy of the current policy. And I've highlighted for you where it says unused sick leave shall accumulate to a maximum of 180 days, including the leave of the current year. IMRF guidelines now say that that number could be increased to 240. We would like to ask the board to amend the policy to reflect that additional higher limit on the accumulation of sick days to help our IMRF employees perhaps have a better annuity when they retire. We did run this by our attorney, Kevin Gordon. He said that is certainly permissible. I've included in the memo to you the proposed language that he would recommend we change the policy to. I was particularly appreciative of the statement, the policy shall not be construed to restore sick leave days previously lost due to the accumulation limits imposed prior to November 9, 2021. So an employee can't go back and reclaim those extra days if they've already retired. There is some possible exposure for the board, and that would be that if someone were extremely ill or incapacitated, they would now have an additional 60 days of accumulated sick leave that they might be able to use. I have no way to predict if that would ever happen, how often or how frequent, but we think that the benefit to our employees outweighs the potential risk that would be associated with that. And so tonight, this is a discussion item, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. But we would be looking for direction to bring this proposed revision back to you at the December meeting for approval. Mrs. Guzik, anything else? Okay, thank you. Any?
Not on mine. Anybody questions, comments on that? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Rob.
The next item is the tentative Norridge District 80 2021 tax levy. I included in your board book a memo to me from Dr. Schilling, our financial consultant. This really puts down in succinct form what he shared with you last month in his PowerPoint presentation. So the levy is an asking for process. We are asking the county clerk to levy taxes upon the property owners within the boundaries of District 80. The money is to be used to fund the operations of the school district. And because this district is in Cook County, we are a tax capped county, which means our increases are limited based on certain conditions that exist. And so what you'll see on the first page in terms of our request for the 2021 tax levy is an increase in the amount of our request of 1.8% over last year. If you look at page 2 of that handout, we're not talking about a tremendous amount of new dollars in terms of funding the district. It's just a small 1.8%. So we wanted to share this with you this evening. See if you had any questions about this. We are not ballooning this levy. We're asking for what we think what we should be able to get given the constraints under the PTEL, the property tax limit law, and this is in keeping with what's been done in this district in the past. And so, again, happy to answer any questions, but we would then bring this back to you next month for formal approval. And we would have to have your formal approval at the December meeting because this levy certificate must be filed with the county clerk's office by the last Tuesday of December. Okay, so this is just again another shot at looking at this, trying to explain it a little bit differently than we did last month. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. Okay, then we'll bring this back next month for approval. The next item that we wanted to discuss with you is the COVID-19 vaccine for students ages 5 to 11. I know that this topic is getting a lot of discussion in a lot of places, and I just wanted to touch base with you to let you know that Mrs. Guzik and I have talked about this, and our thinking is that we will not host a vaccine clinic here. We will provide information on potential clinics for those parents who may wish to have their children ages 5 to 11 vaccinated if those are provided to us. That would not be an endorsement of this on our part, rather it would be sharing information. And we really have no interest in adding any additional vaccines to the list of vaccines that we currently require, unless of course that were done at the legislative level. So we are going to just continue moving forward as we have, and see where this goes in terms of continued changes, which if past is prologue to the future, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some changes regarding this particular vaccine at some point in the future, but at least at this point, this is a parent issue, And we're pretty comfortable moving forward with that thought in mind. And so we wanted to share that with you, and again, those who are listening to our meeting or maybe who are watching it. But I, again, just remind people, we've dealt with a lot of changes over time, and if we get changes from IDPH through CDC, then we'll work through those as we have in the past. But for the time being, I think what I've tried to outline, we're very comfortable with.
Good question on that. If a parent decides to vaccinate their 5 to 11-year-old and give them both shots,
Talk about it.
does the district ask that the parents then notify the district that that child has been vaccinated?
We have not to this point been asking for that.
Good question.
I think will that come into play is if a student is suspected to be close contact, then when the principals contact or the nurses contact the family, that's when that discussion will take place.
Okay.
Because if a child is fully vaccinated, second shot after 2 weeks, and they are close contact, then presumably just as with adults, they would not be considered close contact.
So more a need to know basis.
Correct.
Could you repeat this question? Sorry.
Sure.
Oh, I think he said, when a parent has their 5 to 11-year-old, if they haven't vaccinated, and as Guzik says, 2 weeks pass after their second shot, and the parents feel that they should tell the district, or my question was, is the district going to formally say, do let us know if your child has been vaccinated between now that you can do it between age 5 and 11? Does the district want to know that, or is there going to be any protocol to know that?
Right, they're minors. Right?
So if there is a situation where someone is considered close contact, then the nurse or one of the principals reach out to the family, that's where that conversation will happen. Because if you are fully vaccinated, you are not considered close contact. So then it could be a non-quarantine that would take place. Right now, if someone is considered close contact, they are quarantined because the students don't have the vaccine available until now.
And if I may say, without, I don't want to appear to be anything other than neutral, but having the children 5 to 11 vaccinated would mean they would not have to be quarantined if they are in fact a close contact. That may be an incentive for some parents who maybe are on the fence to think about doing that. And I'm not suggesting that, I'm just saying that may be a consideration. And again, I'll just say it again because I've watched this. We're subject to changes from CDC and IDPH. And if that happens, then we will inform the board and we'll talk about it at an upcoming meeting if need be or if we have the opportunity. But for right now, based on what we know, what I've outlined is the way we'd like to go forward. Question? All right, the last discussion item is a proposed change to policy 8:25, advertising and distributing materials in schools provided by non-school related entities. So we had a discussion a couple of meetings ago about an outside organization possibly distributing flyers and perhaps being given permission to speak to individual classrooms. As part of my review of that initial discussion, I reviewed this policy, policy 8:25, and it appeared to me that the policy as written in the first paragraph talked about an open forum, and then later on went on to talk about a limited open forum. There is a distinction between an open forum and a limited open forum. And so I discussed this with Board President Palazzo, and I suggested that we have our attorney look at our language as it was written, particularly to address the question of whether the policy truly was an open forum or a limited open forum. We did that. The attorney essentially said that yes, what we have is more of a limited open forum rather than a strict open forum. And so what we have is some language that he would possibly suggest that we include in policy 8:25 to reflect that we don't have a true open forum, but rather a limited open forum. And so, again, tonight I'm bringing this to you as kind of the first look at. Would like to bring this to you next month for second reading and adoption. Any questions on that? Then we will plan to do that. That concludes, I believe, the discussion items.
The board have any comments?
I do.
Good.
I was approached by a board member of the Norwood Park Senior Center, and I was asked if we would like to join with Union Ridge. Right now is helping them. They're making holiday cards for the seniors, and they were wondering if we wouldn't mind taking part in this. They haven't figured out who's going to do what holiday yet, but I thought it would be a good cause, and I thought it might be a good idea to bring it up as an art project. So.
Sure, you want to get me the information?
Yes, I definitely will do that. Thank you.
You want to take a minute and look up the information now, or?
I'll get it.
Okay.
I'll get it.
That's okay. No problem.
I don't want to turn my phone while we're in a meeting.
I understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was smooth. Very smooth.
As mentioned earlier, there is no closed session tonight. The one personnel action item was removed from the agenda. So we'll take a few minutes on the board reflection. I can pass them out, sir.
You walk slowly.
Sure. Does everybody have them over there?
Okay, sorry, I already gave them.
They got them?
You better walk over and check.
Perhaps you could pick them up.
I'll get them, not a problem.
So what? No.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
I'll get them.
Oh, Chrome.
I just found.
There he is.
He's got the
Not me.
He's a new. They're newer. Yeah, they're the newer bunch.
Anybody have anything else from the board? Okay. With that being said, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:27 p.m.
Motion.
Motion made by Chris, seconded by Frank. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, meeting is now adjourned, 8:27 PM.